Welcome to Yahoo Finance's flagship show, The Morning Brief. I'm Julie Hyman. Let's get to the three things you need to know today. First up, U.S. stock futures pulling back this morning. That's after the S&P 500 closed at a record high. Tech stocks fueling the rally after AMD signed a deal worth tens of billions of dollars with OpenAI. We are seeing now a recovery in futures this morning, still little changed. Meanwhile, gold pulling back from a record high. The precious metal has surged. Actually, no, it is not pulling back. It's higher. The precious metal has surged 50% this year. It's on a record-breaking run amid the trade war, Federal Reserve rate cuts, and the government shutdown. And as that shutdown enters its seventh day, the president is signaling some willingness to negotiate on health care, but there's a catch. The president first wants Democrats to vote on a temporary spending bill that would fund the government through November. Since the government shutdown began, Democrats and Republicans have been at an impasse over extending Obamacare subsidies. The latest round of votes in the Senate failed to advance both the Republican-led stopgap funding measure and a Democratic alternative. And Tesla gearing up for its product event. Shares initially jumping on the cryptic social media post that the company shared, teasing an October 7th event. But new reports from Bloomberg say the company plans to unveil a cheaper version of the Model Y. That cheaper vehicle will reportedly lack certain features and use less premium materials to offset the loss of the federal tax credit that the U.S. stopped offering as of this month. That stock up about 12% this year. Let's get a check in on stock futures. Indeed, earlier this morning, we were seeing little change to slight declines for the major averages. Now they're pointing to a higher open. The NASDAQ once again leading gains here, indicating a gain of about 1/3 of 1% at the open, whereas the Dow and the S&P pointing to gains of about 0.2%. So we'll see if we get another record day for the major averages. Let's dig into our top stories of the day now. Futures pointing higher after chip stocks and AI enthusiasm once again pushing the S&P 500 and NASDAQ to fresh record closes yesterday. But experts are warning of potential profit taking into year end. And the rally is extending beyond equities. Gold just shy of $4,000 an ounce. Bitcoin hitting an all-time high above $125,000. And Tesla expected to make an announcement today after posting cryptic messages on social media, with investors and analysts speculating a long-awaited affordable EV could be coming. Let's get more details on all of this. Joining me now, Yahoo Finance reporters Ali Canal, Ines Ferre, and Pras Subramanian. Ali, let's start with you. There seemed to be a little bit of wavering in the rally earlier, but now futures are pointing to a higher open. But this keeps happening. You know, there's a lot of questions about it. Is it a bubble? And then stocks keep going up.
Yeah, higher highs is what they say, Julie. And if you take a look at the chip sector, I mean, AMD closed Monday's session up 23%. It's up another 5% early this morning. You have Micron up around 3%, TSMC up nearly 2%, and even NVIDIA and Broadcom, those are two names that fell on Monday due to that increased competition between AMD and OpenAI. You are seeing modest gains shortly before the opening bell. So this tells you that there's still that optimism there. You were talking about some of the bubble risks, and we've been hearing from a variety of strategists on the street. Ed Yardeni raising his price target back to 7,000 for year end for the S&P 500. Evercore ISI, Julian Emmanuel, assigning a 30% chance of a bubble scenario where by the end of 2026, you could see 9,000 for the S&P 500. But Citi was also out with a new note that warning there could be some profit taking. Analysts talked about how there's bullish positioning across U.S. markets, especially in big tech and small caps, and that is now stretched. It has something called the Levkovich Sentiment Index, and that remains well into euphoric territory. Now, typically when that happens, forward returns have historically turned negative, and that exuberance is being echoed elsewhere. Goldman Sachs reports that client sentiment is at its highest level since December. Barclays has a tracker that sits firmly in exuberant territory, yet we're still seeing these consistent record highs, and investors are also looking ahead to earnings season, which kicks off in just a few days, to see if we can sustain that. So really shrugging off a lot of these macro risks and focusing on that AI story here.
And the AI story is in full effect, but other stuff is also pushing to record. So it's sort of like risk on, but hedging. I'm talking about what's going on in places like gold, Ines. It's pretty fascinating to see that at the same time you're seeing equities at record highs.
Yeah, and we are just seeing right now gold futures hitting $4,000 per ounce. That is a record high for gold. Gold now up more than 50% year to date. And we saw that last quarter inflows into gold-backed ETFs also were at records. So the World Gold Council just came out with a report talking about September seeing record inflows. Remember that in September you saw 13 all-time highs for gold, and for the quarter breaking a record for the third quarter of this year as well. So this has been gold has been on a tear. There's been a weaker dollar that has certainly lifted up gold prices, and also the expectations of Fed easing, that's also been very bullish for gold. And you have big firms like Goldman, like JP Morgan, that have been bullish on gold all year. And despite this run, I mean, they are still seeing that gold could push higher. There's also been the sort of question of Fed erosion. That's where these banks are saying that, look, if there is a Fed independence, I should say, if Fed independence erodes, then you could see gold pushing even higher into 2026. There's some bull case scenarios for even $5,000 per ounce.
And then, of course, digital gold is doing the same thing, in terms of pushing higher.
Yeah, look, we've seen a Bitcoin basically on a tear over the last week. It was really starting off October. It's seasonally its strongest month, starting off strong. We saw Bitcoin going to all-time highs yesterday. A lot of the same scenarios for gold you can also apply to Bitcoin as well. A weakening dollar, lower treasury yields. That has been bullish for Bitcoin. And there's been this talk about the debasement trade. That's where basically governments are in so much debt that the only way to get out of this is by printing. And so investors are going into these other assets to sort of hedge against that.
And let's talk about some individual movers as well, namely Tesla. Pras, we got this cryptic announcement. There was this report that it's just a sort of souped down. Is that the opposite of souped up? I don't know. It's a cheaper Model Y. How do we feel about this?
Yeah, I think the term is decontented Model Y is what they say. But yeah, you saw that video, the cryptic video there. People had assumed, is that a rotor or a spinning blade for the new Tesla Roadster? Is it an altogether new vehicle? But it turns out, according to Bloomberg at least, that it's going to be that stripped down Model Y that we heard was going to come out after the expiration of the tax credit. Bloomberg said the car would lack certain features and use less premium materials. What that means is we've seen some stripped down models kind of testing outside, lacking the full light bar in the front, supposedly, like less premium materials inside, less sound deadening, a smaller screen, and lack a second screen for the passengers. So just really kind of think of a Model Y, but just a lot of the bells and whistles sort of removed from there. Musk even said, hey, that's what you're going to see is our cheap vehicle. It's not going to be an altogether new vehicle. So a little bit of the enthusiasm kind of taking off here. The stock a little bit down today. We saw Q3 deliveries pull forward, right, because of the fact that EV tax credit went away. Is a vehicle like this going to jumpstart sales because of the fact that it's going to maybe possibly be around $35,000? We'll see. That's the question: is will it actually help Q4 deliveries?
Well, and Musk himself seems to have just kind of lost enthusiasm for the car business, right? Which, again, as we like to remind people, is still where they get most of their money from, most of their revenue from, the vast majority of their revenue from. But whenever he talks these days, he says if you're buying Tesla, you're not buying it for the cars. You're buying it for the stuff that doesn't make money yet, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tesla, over 90% of the revenue, if not more, is from the car business. That's their bread and butter. But Julie, we talked about the AI trade. I mean, earlier just now, you talk about market valuations, and Elon Musk he's looking at that, looking at OpenAI, looking at NVIDIA. Hell, we're that company too. We're an AI company. We're a robotics company. What about us? And he's actually convinced the market, right, that Tesla deserves that multiple, and the stock's been going up 12% this year after a steep dive earlier in the year. So it's not about the cars, he says. It's about our future products. But guess what? The cars are driving the business right now.
Yeah, well, and it's up 12%, but it's not up like AMD amounts or some of the others that are more directly involved in that AI trade. And by the way, there was also a report in the FT that he has named a new CFO for his XAI. So trying to make moves on that side of the business. Guys, thanks so much. Ali, Ines, Pras, appreciate it. Coming up on Morning Brief, we bring you today's top trending tickers as we count you down to the opening bell. We'll be right back. Now time for some of today's trending tickers. We are watching Dell, Intercontinental Exchange, and Trilogy Metals. First up, Dell. Those shares are jumping after the company roughly doubled its long-term growth estimates for sales and profit for the next 2 years. Dell also said demand for artificial intelligence products will extend those higher projections at least through the 2030 fiscal year. The company unveiled a long-term financial framework that calls for sales to rise at a rate of 7 to 9% annually for the next 4 years. Earnings per share, excluding some items, will increase 15% or more. That announcement comes ahead of an investor event the company is holding in New York. Next up, Intercontinental Exchange, or ICE, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, plans to invest as much as $2 billion in cash in Polymarket. That's the crypto-based betting platform. Polymarket lets traders wager on the outcome of real-world events like elections and sports, and now has a market value of $8 billion after that investment. ICE will become a global distributor of Polymarket's event-driven data, providing customers with sentiment indicators on topics in the market. That's according to a statement from the companies. The exchange operator and Polymarket have also agreed to partner on future tokenization initiatives. But by the way, Polymarket could not legally operate in the United States, but with the sort of regulatory changes in Washington, things have shifted. Finally, Trilogy Metals, shares of the small cap mineral exploration company, surging as much as 236%. After the White House said the U.S. will take a 10% stake in that company, the $35 million investment will help secure critical energy and mining projects in Alaska. It's the latest example of the Trump administration taking stakes in North American critical mineral companies to help counter China's dominance in the industry. Just last week, the U.S. agreed to acquire a direct interest in Lithium Americas. As always, you can scan the QR code below to track the best and worst performing stocks with Yahoo Finance's trending tickers page. Well, Qualcomm just announcing plans to acquire Arduino, an open source hardware and software developer. The deal builds on Qualcomm's recent acquisitions, creating a powerful developer ecosystem and a path to the robotics market. Joining me now, Yahoo Finance tech editor Dan Howley and Nakul Duggal, Qualcomm Group General Manager of Automotive and Industrial and Embedded IoT, that is Internet of Things. Nakul, thank you so much for being here. I hope I'm saying it right, guys. Arduino? Yes? Arduino. It's Italian. So, Nakul, tell us how Arduino fits into what Qualcomm does and the company's strategy.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Dan, Julie. Arduino is an open source hardware, open source software community that has been around for 2 decades, 30 million developers. As we start to see the major progress towards edge AI getting to scale, a platform like Arduino allows Qualcomm, and we've been building, as you know, semiconductors at scale for the edge for a number of years. It allows us to take our technology, make it available to all types of developers, from students to hobbyists to professionals.
So, Nakul, I just want to ask, as far as the edge and the AI plays kind of at stake here, how does this build out Qualcomm's edge capabilities as you kind of see the business start to diversify more away from the handset business that still makes up a big piece of overall revenue?
One thing that we are seeing in terms of the opportunities that are possible with edge AI, I think we are scratching the surface. For example, today, as we announced the acquisition, we have already announced our first platform with Arduino that allows us to be able to take the Arduino Uno Q, which is the flagship Arduino development platform, and make that available to the entire community. You can order the boards today; they'll be available by next week in your hands. The rate at which AI is now scaling, democratizing AI at the edge, is where we are making a big bet. We feel like IoT is just now starting to scale all the way from simple devices to robotics. One of the areas that Arduino has spent a lot of time on is focusing on robotics, and that is something that we are also going to be spending time on over the course of the year.
So where does the developer community fit in here? Because Arduino has a huge developer community around the world. They have educational tools for people who are just starting out. There's mid-range offerings, and then there's obviously professional offerings as well. Where do those developers fit into this, and are they kind of the key part of the acquisition?
They're a very large part of the acquisition, Dan. In fact, if you think about where Arduino fits in, it starts all the way from education, moves into hobbyist and prototyping, and then eventually enterprises using the Arduino platform to even build commercial applications. One thing that, as we have taken on this IoT challenge in the face of AI at the edge, one thing that is clear to us is being able to reach out to the entire community all the way from the beginning of the life cycle when they're prototyping to being able to commercialize, which is something that we obviously know a lot about, is a very important move that we had to go make. This is a community that wants to be able to be very independent, wants to be able to touch and feel the application that they're trying to work on. Today, as we've made this announcement, Arduino has also in parallel launched their App Lab program, which allows developers to be able to take sample applications, AI applications, deploy them on their own hardware, and get going right away.
I just want to ask.
We feel like one of the big differentiators for us now is going to be able to bring our technology straight into the hands of a developer, which is something that we have not been able to go to in the past.
I also want to ask about how AI fits into all this and robotics. When you think about Arduino, you might not necessarily think about those categories. Where do they fit in as far as that push for Qualcomm?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So one thing that we bring to Arduino is our high performance, low power pedigree in terms of bringing CPU, GPU, AI technology all the way to the edge. Today, if you think about the rate at which AI is evolving, we can run really any type of model at the edge, from classical models all the way to vision language action models. These are all models that are supported, fully distilled, fully quantized, running at the edge, enabling so many different features that were, until last year, perhaps not even possible in an edge environment. What Arduino has not had access to over the years is really the ability to run these AI applications all the way to the edge. They've had a microcontroller-based heritage, and one thing that we've introduced today for the very first time is the Arduino Uno Q, which is running on our Dragonwing QRB2210 processors. This is the start of many additional development platforms to come. But with this first one, we will actually arm the developer ecosystem with AI-based applications that they can start to go use. So this, I think, is going to be a big plus for the Arduino community.
Nakul, Dan's the technical guy here. I have a money question, which is, when do you think this will start to contribute to Qualcomm's revenue in a meaningful way? It sounds like this is sort of really a long-term bet on edge AI and won't necessarily, be accretive in the shorter term.
We've been investing in the IoT space over the last few years when you talk about the Internet of Things. As that intersects AI, Julie, what we are starting to see is this massive pent-up demand for every type of developer to be able to take applications that they know can benefit immensely from AI and convert their products to be AI ready. You are starting to see this already in the smartphone space, in the cloud space. But the ability for this to happen in IoT is just now starting. Our expectations are that this is now going to allow us to significantly accelerate the edge AI transition, which frankly is upon us because the models are there, the hardware is there. We're not building any new classes of chips for this. This is really about enabling a massive ecosystem that is ready to take on a significant amount of opportunity and convert it into product. We feel like this moment is actually upon us. And that is, frankly, one of the reasons why we've made a product introduction alongside the announcement of the acquisition.
Nakul, interesting stuff. Looking forward to seeing all of this trickle its way out into devices that we all use in our everyday lives. Dan, Nakul, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up on Yahoo Finance Opening Bid, our executive editor, Brian Sozzi, also the host of that program, joining us now. He's got a tie on today. I don't know what that signal is for the market. What is it?
It signals it is a bull market, Julie. That's the only thing it continues. Blue equals bulls. But we're going to continue to dive into all things AI after that big OpenAI and AMD deal on Monday. Also, KPMG's new US CEO, Tim Walsh, stopping by. We're going to talk about their new survey of CEOs, which are sending a clear message to the Trump administration and all things tariffs. At least that was my takeaway, Julie.
All right, looking forward to hearing more about that and watching the blue tie as it works.
Tomorrow's green, and that's going to be bear market, Julie.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, a little counterintuitive there.
It's true.
That does it for Morning Brief. Saz has got you next on Yahoo Finance.